discussion with looking at the specific elements within my project that excel in meeting my rhetorical requirements. I'm going to start by showing this, the wiki page of my original course site. And you can see here, I'll scroll down on it, that the way that it gets set up, there's not columns, and so you have to scroll all the way down. And I tried with bold to set apart the genres, but it's kind of hard to see. And then I tried to center the picture and center the words, and the picture continually is moved to the side, and so I couldn't get that to be centered. Over here, I tried to put on navigation that helped and tried to limit the navigation, but my students really felt like they always had to come back to home to really know where to go because I couldn't embed pages underneath pages, and so I either had to have a list of every possible thing or limit that. Also, the general look around the wiki page itself here on the top and the left margin is the same color, and then the white is the same color as well, and then the fonts are hard, as I discovered, to play with. So there was a lot that I didn't like on this site, and so I decided that Google Sites, having used it in class, and played with layout and design options really offered more options. So, and that CSS coding, I could control the design more. So now I will show you a brief look at my current site, and I hope you can see right away some of the differences, and I'll talk through them. But I really want to talk with what I learned on this. And so what I have here is when I first made my site, I was pretty overwhelmed with all of the choices. I had no idea really what to do over here in working with, well, I'm actually already in edit mode, working with the, let me save this up, working here in the manage site mode. Now, I decided not to use a template because I thought I should just set it up on my own. And so I did that, and here's what I have. This is not a template. So the first thing I did to really meet my needs was decide that I wanted to play with images more than I had before. And this is tied to Shelley's highlighting in her feedback email of our canonical pages the use of Matt using images and how he used them as portals into his pages. And I'm sure some of her compliments were because he seems to have created his own images. I wasn't sure that I was up for that yet, but I really thought I could focus on having some visuals on this page and use those as entry points. So here are my visuals with my 6 genres, and I spent a long time picking these and making sure I had bright ones and ones that were varied with people and ones that hinted at the genre but not said it right away, and so they could click and then discover the genre, kind of like a little mystery. I did actually, though, make my own 2 images, collages anyway. This right here, I'm pointing beside number 2. This is a picture, a personal picture of one of my students that I then layered the Poetry Out Loud logo onto. And then this Frankenstein picture, I layered the Gothic novel on there as well. So I'm not Matt, but I did create my own collages of images. So I did branch out. I played with Photoshop elements for that. So that made me kind of proud. The next thing is that I really wanted to look at the font on the page. And the font I'm using, Ledger, is not a Google Sites font. It's one I actually code for, which I'll show you later. But I liked the font because it looked old, and it was a serif font, and it looked like kind of an old typewriter. And I liked the idea of that old-fashioned printing with my digital space and bringing together in my English class the fact that we're reading and we're doing digital things together. I really liked that. I also picked a page wrap image and a background color to further show this, and I'm actually going to show you here on this site. This is what it looked like at first, and so you'll see that this is very different, and I'll talk to you about why I made those changes. But I originally had my page wrapper over here. You can see it on the top left and right, and I put that there because I thought it would be a cool side thing. And then I picked kind of a gray color to blend with this page wrapper of the old-fashioned writing plus my font and then the gray. So I really was trying to make a whole visual package. So the sidebar on the first page, if I go back here, this sidebar is also a really good option for me. It is easily accessible. However, there's no cluttering because you can open and close the drop-down menus, and I really liked this. I did, however, when I was first making my subpages, I added them in the wrong spot, and I was able to move them to where they needed to be, which was kind of exciting for me to figure out on my own how to do that. And so I went here to Pages, and then I discovered that I could open up my tree and I could click and drag. So my short stories page actually ended up first of all underneath Introduction to Genres, and I moved underneath Home. And then my sub pages ended up under Home, and I had to move them under Short Stories. So this I figured out on my own, just playing and exploring Google Sites. And that was really the first step, is just to figure out how it works. Um, I did not like at first the spread. Oh, you can't see it in that. I don't have a picture of it, unfortunately. But at first, all of my pages were also linked down here at the bottom. This is an extra set of links I put in here, but the pages were linked there. And I didn't like that they were in two places. I thought that might actually be somewhat confusing, but if nothing else, it was cluttered. So I also looked up to try to find out how to get rid of that, and I found this Google product forum, and this really became my main place where I found out a whole lot of how to manage Google Sites. And so I was really going out on my own trying to figure out some different things. So here was the question, and they told me here about where I could do it. And so I was able to hide those subpages at the bottom, which allowed me, I was trying to figure out how to cite my images without that cluttering up. So I was able to put my image citations down here at the bottom. So I would be doing the right thing, but also showing my students how to cite and that it's important to cite, but that I could get it kind of out of the way and it wouldn't be up here around all my images themselves. I had originally linked the citations to my images, only to realize, duh, I needed to link my genre pages to my images. So I actually had to make that change as well and think of a new place to put my image citations. So I did that. Now, the next thing I have done is, you'll see here, I have crafted two of my genre pages, and I've done only two, and I explain in my blog why that is, so I won't go into that here. But I want to look at short stories now, and we're going to look at poetry later from my expert page. So on the short stories page, here I decided to add a class notes page, which is this master techniques, and a vocab page. And these are the first big note-taking activities of freshman year. And I haven't put these on before on a site. And so I added that here because I felt like it served a great purpose, that we could take notes together and they could see how we were taking notes. And that's a really important skill entering ninth grade, is to make sure your note-taking skills are up to par. So I liked how I could have this link to this page and have it be, again, easily accessible over here from the home page, but hidden and not too cluttering, but where students could come and refer to this. And this is where I worked in the theory of persistence as well as performance, and I explained that again on my blog, so I won't go into that fully here. I also decided as a mnemonic device, a memory device, to repeat the images here. And so when they get to see that genre short stories, they see the picture again, and then when they're on the home page, they see that picture, and it's just a nice connection for them moving back and forth. And a visual really helps people remember things as well. And so they'll imagine this picture when they think about short stories, I hope. So the final thing I want to show you on my page is that I added this custom footer. And this is my first foray into CSS coding, and so that's where we're going to go now, is to me explaining really my successes and my struggles with coding. So the Google forum showed me how to customize this footer, which was nice, but it still wasn't totally simple for me. And so what I found out first is, again, doing a search, I really was wondering just how, as you can see here on the page, how to use CSS coding in Google Sites. And what I discovered is that you don't create the separate CSS style page. Instead, you do this inline CSS. And so I thought, okay, I think I can do that. But then this caveat was that down here at the bottom is that Google Sites doesn't always take what you put in, and it's going to change it and put it into what it liked. And so this was important to me because what happened when I first was creating this page is I had looked up the code for a blue that I liked. I was trying to tie to our blue of our school colors, and I saw one and I put the code in and it changed it. It wouldn't take my code of a CSS font color. So I thought, oh no, okay. So then I tried the blue that was built into Google Sites and it was too bright, it didn't work. So I went back again and looked up CSS font colors and discovered that there were more basic ones that were named, and I found navy, and by putting that in, I was able to get the right color that I wanted. And so I bumped up against that and was actually, this is really exciting for me that I got my first coding done and that I had solved the problem and I had sort of beaten Google Sites because it didn't change it back to what I wanted, to change it back from what I wanted. So that was really exciting. Okay, so the next place that was really hard for me was the layout of this first page. So here, it looks all nice and neat, but what it looked like originally was kind of like this. And this is only two of the genres, but you can see that I couldn't get the numbers to line up with the picture, and I couldn't get the spacing right. It was totally bizarre, and this is something I had found in Google Sites using it for myself in our class. And so what I was able to do was go in to the HTML code and really play with the div and the P's. And so here I have an image of the different breaks, using particularly the BR and a div code to set up sections. Really, BR was the key of what I learned here, is where the BRs were and moving them around to get them to where the spacing was. And so this was exciting for me because what I was doing was flipping back and forth. I'll go up here to my edit page. Once this opens up, I was flipping back and forth between HTML and the visual editor, and I would play in the HTML and I would pop over to the visual to see what was happening. So I was really paying attention to where my breaks were ending and beginning and my dividers. So I popped back and forth and really learned that. The other thing I did, and I didn't want to do it at first because I had finally gotten it the way I wanted it to look, but I decided to go to 3 columns. I originally had, which oh, sorry, not that picture. You can see here, I originally had only 2 columns and I didn't have a third column over here. Well, I decided that was kind of too wide and I wanted to do some other options, so I did 3 columns. Well, that totally messed up my spacing, but I did it, and I fixed my spacing again in the HTML code, and I even tried 1 column just to see. But then the last thing I did as I was looking at this picture is that I thought it was a little confusing to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up and down this vertical. So I said, you know what, I should do horizontal. Well, again, I had to change everything to do that, to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But I did it, and it took me a ridiculously long amount of time, but I was really proud of myself when I was done because I had made it look the way I wanted it to look, which here you can see I've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I've got all my numbers spaced against my genres. I wanted kind of a random spacing for the numbers, but to have them stand out. And I've got my little bits of information underneath each all lined up, and they line up horizontally with each other as well. So I was really very, very proud of myself. Okay, so then I took a few days off and I returned to coding on the poetry page, and I discovered that my font was wrong. I thought I had fixed the font to be Ledger, but it was wrong on my short stories page too, when I thought I had done that right. So I decided to test myself, and I decided that I would, I'll go back to here. I decided I would try to code by memory, and to see if I could code the font. Now, I kept getting the failure message. Google kept taking over my code, telling me there was something wrong, and wiping it out. So what I did was review the span and the div, span being a whole style spread over the whole thing, and div being sections of style. And I experimented with coding the font inside each, and realized that I really needed to pay attention, particularly to when the div codes came,